Tyler, our next guest intimidates me.
Uh-oh.
I'm not afraid to admit it, because when you pull up Steve Acho's website, he's a keynote speaker, technology staffing executive, an author, bilingual consultant, musician, athlete. Come on, he is superhero. And with us now is Steve. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and thanks for saying that. I'm not sure I've had anyone say that I was intimidating.
You have had so many successes in life. What do you contribute that to?
Most of it luck, I would say. Not that I don't work hard, but I won the lottery as far as the family that I was born into. My mom and dad are amazing and have always been great role models and supportive of anything I did or wanted to do. But yeah, I think, part of it is that I'm just so curious. Out of anything else, I'm like intellectually curious is how I would describe myself. And so I'm always looking to learn, and I'm always kind of testing things. So everything to me, a lot of people, they've almost fetishized failure, right? There's a book called Fail Faster, and the whole West Coast Silicon Valley community is like, fail as fast as you can and iterate and try and figure out what works. And it's like, I understand what they're saying by that, and I think it's great. It's a great message. But the way I look at it is there's really no such thing as failing, because everything is just a test. I mean, if you look at everything like a test, it doesn't matter what a job could be a test to see if you like this job and if you like this career and if you like the people you're working with. And so if you view it that way, there's no such thing as failure. And so to not even have that as part of your vocabulary just has you trying everything if you're interested,
That's one of the things I do say when I speak to up-and-coming journalists. One of the things I always tell them, take any job and every job.
Right.
Because you need to learn. And when you stop learning, you stop living. So even if it's the worst job in the world, you've learned you don't like that job and you want to do something else.
It was a good investment. Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because there's kind of like seemingly conflicting advice. Like one of my mentors is Derek Sivers, who's a pretty well-known musician, but he started a company called CD Baby years ago. He was the first independent seller of music. And he sold his company for $28 million and immediately gave $27 million to music for schools in the United States. Just a fascinating, amazing guy. And he has this concept that he calls hell yes or no. And what that means is basically, if you don't feel like hell yes about this job or this vacation or anything, then just make it a no. Because why do you want to live your life being at 5s and 6s when you could be at 8, 9s, and 10s? And so part of that, he says, like, he really manages his schedule and leverages it to where he wants to put his time. And especially someone like him who has people coming at him all the time, he has to be really, he has to really consider what's a good investment of his time. So in one year, I have this advice that I do follow, which is, hell yes or no. Like, I'm gonna say yes to this project or this business partner or whatever because I really feel strongly about it, or else no, I'm gonna be very picky. But that's, I'm close to 50 years old, so I can do that, and we can do that when we're more established. But the advice that you're giving up and coming people should be the opposite, and you're right about that. You don't even know how to focus on what you want to do until you've been through several iterations and you've done different hobbies and been exposed to different industries. So you're absolutely right. Like, take on everything that you can so that you grow to a point where you're really picky about what you take on. And so for me, at this point in my career and in my life, I have this little mental checklist, this mental criteria whenever I take on any project, whether it's business related or not. Is it something that is bringing something new and useful into the world? Am I working with other people that are smart and that I can learn from? Will it have impact? And then the very last one is, will I at least break even in terms of spending my time or money? And obviously you can't say that about everything. I'm not going to pretend making money isn't important, because it is. But when you have that checklist in your head, then you can say, hell yes, this checks all the boxes, or no, it doesn't, you know?
That's such a great philosophy. I know that we have you on the show today to talk about your new song, but before we get there, can I ask you, when you mentioned having a mentor, how important is it for people to find a mentor in the industry in which they're hoping to succeed to help guide them along the way? And how do you find a mentor?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean,
Or were you
I
just
think
lucky to come across these people?
Yeah, well, obviously a good part of it is luck. I consider some mentors people that I haven't even met in person. I may have, I've had a few email exchanges with, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what the system is to find a mentor, but at the very least, I would encourage people who are early in their career, even if it's not some kind of a long-term relationship, if you think you want to go to medical school or law school or whatever it is that you're going to spend a significant amount of your time on, go to someone, or preferably more than one person, not necessarily as a mentor, but just to ask smart questions like, everything from the practical, like what is the landscape like now, and what do you think it'll be like in 4 or 5 years? What are the best and worst parts of being in this industry? And when you get to the end first, because you're going to go through whatever it is that you're trying to learn, it doesn't matter. You're going to spend a lot of your time learning it. Make sure that at the end, you're able to do something that you really are passionate about doing. So even before mentoring, it's like just get the advice of smart people and learn from what they've done. But absolutely, like I think it's so important now. I've always thought that, but now there are apps developed that are for finding a mentor, and you can pay X amount a month and have a life coach or a business coach, and I just think, first of all, if you have friends or family members, which I happen to, that I can go to for advice, just running things by another person who isn't you and who's a smart person, automatically they have a perspective that you can't possibly, because you're always living the movie of your life and they're outside of it. But to have someone who has stories and who has anecdotes and who has, experience with things, you go to them, and these are your mentors. And then that, you're held accountable to everything that you're saying that you want to do. So yeah, I just think it's so important, and one of mine is my dad. So I'm lucky, like we live near each other and I can talk to him all the time. And, a lot of people go to him for advice. So like I said, I won the lottery with that one.
That is so awesome, and you're such a lucky person. But I will say, a lot of times for some of the like college students, my niece is about to graduate, and it's like, hey, it's okay to reach out to people. Find them on LinkedIn, and send them an email and say, hey, I'm a student, I'm about to graduate, I would love to pick your brain, because I do think so many people want to give back or give forward to the next industry or the next generation of people who are going to lead us through this world. But
just saying, I would love to get your advice, and just saying that line right there, I'd love to get your advice on something. Most people are nice. They're not the negative news stories we hear. Most people are happy to help if they can,
Very much so. And with that, we know that you're here because you have a new song that came out. What's it been like to be a performer, though, during the middle of a pandemic when everything shut down?
Well, I am, again, lucky there, because even though I performed all the time, I would do at least one a month somewhere. I'm not one of those musicians who's making a living that way. So when bars close down and stuff, I haven't played live in bars multiple times a week for several years. So that, I love performing, and I love being around other people and having the energy of the audience. So I think it's changed more. I feel worse for my musician friends who are just doing it all the time. But a lot of them have just adapted and, quickly gone to this remote, performance route. I did one pretty big concert that had like a 4-camera video shoot and a audio tech guy, and it was really professional and well done and fun. And I'll probably do another one of those too. But yeah, it's really just changed everyone's lives. I mean, imagine all the tours that were supposed to happen, right, last year and this year. So very different world.
But you're also a keynote speaker for so many events, and those I think back to these companies and corporations, and they would bring everyone together and, have days of conferences and bring in speakers such as yourself and performers. Is that going away?
It's really hard to know what's going to happen in that industry. I mean, a good portion of people have really adapted and pivoted now that we can't all have a bunch of humans in one room. I just got an invite to do a keynote in Florida in a couple weeks. And for me personally, no matter how safe they're being, I'm not yet comfortable getting on a plane and going to Florida and being around other people. So I had to turn it down. But there are events going on. And, there are companies and organizations that are booking keynote speakers just like this. They're still live in front of you. There's nothing like the energy of being around other people. I can't pretend that it's the same, but I think that the industry, people still need that. You know what I mean? They need to have the energy of another person that they look up to, like a keynote speaker, and get that info, not just in the impersonal way of reading their blog or their book.
You are a very energetic person and someone that's a very creative person as well. How have you filled that void of that energy coming off of another person during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I almost didn't even notice it until I did the first performance where I had, dozens and dozens of people watching me live, and I knew they were there. And I've got cameras all around me, and I'm just performing. And, it was probably an hour and a half show. So I play a song, and it's not like I need everyone to applaud me. There's just no energy. It was the weirdest thing to just play a song and be done. And, there's 4 people in the room with me who, by definition, aren't listening to me because they're doing their jobs. And so it's like, I know I'm performing to people, but there's no back and forth energy. There's no, when I'm playing live, I can tell if someone's more interested in their phone or if they're loving the song or if they think it's funny. So yeah, it's an adjustment to not be able to have the energy of being in front of people. So it's been difficult. In terms of being creative, though, I've always, for the most part, other than writing songs with friends and other songwriters, I'm pretty much in my own bubble when I'm being creative anyways. So, my phone's off and I'm on the piano and I say, all right, I'm going to take the next half hour and write a song about this. So that doesn't really depend on being around others. Actually, it depends on me being alone. So,
so in that, the pandemic's worked out good for you.
Right.
Steve Acho here with us on the Megacast. One of the things that I enjoy about you, you don't go the typical route. One thing we hear over and over and over, doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's like, this is the process, this is how you get here, and this is what you have to do. But reading your website, you have found success by making your own path.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, one of the things I think you do is you make your own path, but then you go back to, at least for me, because one of the ways that in our minds, we all have a way that we grade ourselves, like our report cards. And for some, it might be how many friends they have or how much money they make or whatever it is, doesn't matter. But we grade ourselves that way. And I noticed for me that I kind of grade myself on how helpful, how useful I can be to others. And so whenever I learn how to do something and I think I can hack that and help people, like for example, I created this methodology for learning a second language really fast, like being very functional in a second language. And it's not that this is the way to do it and there's no other way, but this is a very reliable path, even for people who think they're bad at languages, and here it is. And so sometimes you break all the rules and figure out what works, and then you write that down and say, this is the most reliable way that I think I can get you from A to B. It took me 10 years. It should take you 1 if I'm doing a good job, So you do want to try and deconstruct anything that's even moderately successful so that it's useful to others. So, and that's why I write my blog. It's the only reason really that I write a blog. It's not, I don't check to see how many people are reading it. I don't, I'm not advertising. There's no money-making scheme there. It's just to share really short chunks of info that were really important and practical perspectives for me that helped me through life. So just to share that with others.
So with that, how can people hear your new song?
Well, if you just Google my name, it's good and bad. I can't rob a bank or do anything because there's only one Steve Acho. But just steveacho.com has all of my info and links to everywhere. But pretty much any music platform that you use, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or iTunes, or there's so many of them, Pandora. If you just pop my name in there, you will see all of the music. I think I just had to count these. I have about 170 songs, between singles and albums that are available. So that's a lot of Steve Acho. I don't know if you want to listen to all of them at the same time. It's a little too much.
Maybe one a day, right?
Maybe one a day. Yeah, good.
Hey,
no, keep them streaming.
There you go. Hey,
there's a few thousand streams, and I can buy a cup of coffee, so it's great.
That's good to know. But what are your goals for this year? Do you set goals?
I do, but they're not necessarily specific financial goals or anything, but it's actually, it comes in the form for me. So I like the 80-20 rule. So what I do is I look at my investment of time and energy, and I say, what are the few things that pay off the most? And what are the few things that I need to stop doing? So my goals are more of a to-do list and a not to-do list. And so it's basically, in all the categories that I have in my mind under professional and personal, it's understanding more and more what's working and do more of that, and understand where I'm spinning my wheels and doing less of that. So it's a little more ambiguous than just like $1 million by this date,
No, but it works, though. It's good advice for all of us. Steve Acho with us here. Before we say goodbye to you today, anything you want to share?
Let me think of what I guess for people that are, in case this is useful to people that are having a hard time not being around others, I see that depression was high before, but it's skyrocketing up now. And I think the two things that have helped me and will help other people is to be really disciplined. I mean, I've been working out of my house for about 10 years, so this isn't new to me to have a home office and not get up and do laundry in the middle of the day unless that's part of my plan. So I've been pretty disciplined about doing it. But when you're used to waking up in a place that isn't where you work, you have to be disciplined and have rituals. So I think what helps people, young and old alike, is just being disciplined and having a morning routine and having a night routine and having between these hours, I'm going to do this. And after every 2 hours of working, I'm going to stretch because I shouldn't be sitting for hours at a time. And so just that helps keeps you away from being depressed and just being alone with your thoughts. And then I think the other thing is we live in such an amazing time where there aren't really any gatekeepers anymore. If you want to have a show, there's YouTube. Go create a show. You don't need anyone's permission. You barely need any money. You just need a computer or a phone. And so just go create something. Use the time to say, this is what I'm building during this time. And so devoting your energy to that, I think, would be helpful to people who aren't sure what to do next.
Well, we so appreciate your time this morning. Steve Acho with us here on the Megacast. You can find out more about him by going to steveacho.com.